All right, moving right along in tonight's show, we got a spring update, and we're just going to generally talk about kind of Dabo's comments and where we're at so far this spring. We just finished our second scrimmage today, Jordan. Dabo talked to the media for about 30 minutes after, talked about Cade Klubnik. They asked, one of the reporters asked how Cade Klubnik was doing. He was like, he's fine, don't worry. I say one negative thing about him, and everybody freaks out. Basically just saying that, anytime he gets an opportunity to coach a veteran guy hard and really dig into him as a coach, get after him, he's going to take that opportunity every time because Cade Klubnik doesn't give him a lot of those opportunities. But he said Cade Klubnik did really well today, 5 of 7 passing, I believe. They asked about Chris Vizina and how he's progressing this spring. And Dabo said he's doing a lot of good, but he's leaving some plays out there on the field that they want to see him do, but did have a really nice touchdown pass in the red zone today. So it sounds like he's progressing well. One of the guys that I've heard a lot of the players and coaches talk about, Jordan, is Tristan Smith. And when they talk about him, we heard from Garrett Riley earlier in the week, and he talked about his range and just – he's a big-bodied receiver. He's long, and he plays big, right? Dabo talked about it today. Garrett Riley talked about it earlier in the week about how not every big, long, wide receiver uses their size in that way. But basically, Garrett Riley told his quarterbacks that if you miss Tristan Smith, then I don't know what to tell you. There's something wrong with you because he can absolutely go up and get the ball. His range is gigantic and unbelievable. So those were a few guys that kind of got pointed out throughout the interviews. You heard from the running backs a little earlier in the week as well. You heard from Easy E. He's really itching to contribute to this team in a big way this year. Adam Randall just, looks like the consummate professional. He's just calm, cool, collected. He's like, I got it. He's like, I'm used to running with the ball in my hand, so I'm figuring it out. So, but what are your thoughts overall, just on everything we've heard to this point from spring practice? Where does this team currently sit, and what would you like to see come the spring game on April 5th?
Yeah, just a lot of positives from this past scrimmage. You hit on a couple of them. Another guy that has just continued to impress, a true freshman, is none other than Braden Jacobs. Due to some injuries, he had to. He started with the first team, I believe, today, and he held his own, and he actually, he had to go up against T.J. Parker, for his first, or some of his earliest reps, but he really settled in from what was reported and had a really, really nice scrimmage. So that's really good to see because he's a guy that could potentially help you in a spot, down the road. It'd be nice if you could, hold him off and not have to burn his red shirt. But he's a guy that came in and we told you guys when he signed, he's a guy that would not surprise us if he came in and he was ready to play right away because he's just one of those rare guys that comes in and the NFL pedigree certainly helps. His dad, being a former NFL player, and he's just further along than most freshman tackles. And Clemson has just kind of had their run of guys like that. You think of Blake Miller, Jackson Carman before him, guys that just came in and they were ready to go right away and ready to start. Those guys are rare at tackle, but Braden he's built for it. So excited to see him. Amari Adams impressed in the screen. He looks the part very much so at defensive tackle. You might not be able to keep him off the field this year. We've talked about this defensive line and the depth that they have. I don't know. I don't know if you can redshirt Amari Adams this year. It seems less and less likely. He's that good. So wanted to mention him. I heard that Marcus Dixon, converted tight end to defensive end, had a sack today.
There you go.
Yeah, so pretty good to see that. You mentioned Adam Randall. I've been very much so on the Gideon Davidson train, but Adam Randall looks really good too. Like I don't think it's going to be a situation where Gideon is just going to come in and he's going to be that guy, the primary back right away. I think you're going to see a lot of Adam Randall too. He's taken on this role from what's been reported, and he's really made the most of it, and he looks the part. He's a tough guy to handle at that size, man. It's just
Right.
you don't get too many guys, with his build, just running the ball like that, and you kind of saw it in the you kind of saw it in the Texas game, that burst that he has, the contact balance. I think he's going to be a tough back to kind of bring down. Let's see, who else did I want to mention? John mentions Ronan Hannafin. Yeah, we've talked about him a little bit earlier in the show. Yeah, he had a big hit on Eazy-E.
That's right.
And they've been really complimentary of kind of his progression this year. So all in all, you're seeing a good mix of guys that have been in the program and some the newcomers starting to impress. That's been really exciting. Will Helt, Dabo said he looks like he's been here 4 years. I mean, so I mean that should tell you all you need to say. I mean, I think they were really sure about him when they got him out of the transfer portal, and he's been everything they've hoped he would be. So it's if you have two defined starters at defensive end, TJ Parker and Will Helt both coming at you with their level of athleticism and power off the edge. I mean, that's what this defensive line was missing last year. They have the tools to be a complete unit as long as those guys stay healthy. So, this lot of positives coming out of this past scrimmage. Trying to think of other things that he mentioned. We kind of hit on some of the guys that really stood out, but I think there's a lot of things to be encouraged about. Glad to see that Chris Vezina is continuing to progress.
Yes.
And, you're going to need him to be ready. Obviously, he's the next guy up, and I'm still very much a believer that he's going to be, the guy when Cade Klubnik leaves after this season. So,
yes.
Seeing him continue to progress, because I think he has all the tools to be a really, really good starter for Clemson. That's always a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Clemson, there's tons of positives coming out of spring. Obviously there's question marks. There's question marks at running back. We mentioned that before spring practice started. There's question marks at the depth of defensive end, the depth of cornerback, the depth at linebacker, who's going to fill in at safety from the big hole that RJ Mickens left. But you're hearing a lot of positive stuff. And one of the things outside of the players, just from a coaching standpoint, is you're hearing that fire, that energy is back on the defensive side of the ball with the addition of a Tom Allen. He's completely flipped the way they approach practice over there, the intensity level that's on the defense. Oh, and it certainly helps that you got a maniac at linebackers coach and Ben Boulware. So I'm sure him and Tom Allen just feed off of each other on that defensive side of the ball. And then you throw in, some of the other coaches that bring the energy as well, like a Matt Luke and Nick Eason. There you go. Just guys that bring a ton of energy when they're on the field. So you got a great mix of that on the coaching staff now, and you're really hearing the difference of intensity that Clemson approaches spring with this go around versus even just last year. So a lot of positive things coming out of spring. You're hearing the things that you want to hear from some of the younger players that we need to step up. It's nice to hear that your transfers are working out nicely, just how you wanted them to. But we'll see. Still a lot of work to do. This is not even close to a complete team, but moving closer and closer in that direction with each spring practice. And I wait for the spring game.